So let me say a few words about why there is this and why we're having a reception. This is sponsored especially by Wiley Blackwell because this is the launch of Social and Personality Psychology Compass, which you will learn more about. Many of you already know, others of you will learn about other sources, but basically a new peer-reviewed survey source that is going to be entirely online. But what we wanted to do as an introduction to a reception that we'll have next door or across the hall or somewhere where there'll be food and drink, what we wanted to do is a kind of a roundtable or talks, and we wanted to use, because Social and Personality Compass is a new research communication or scientific communication tool as we see it. We wanted to talk about the research communication and how it occurs. In particular, a lot of this will be around the topic of how do things get reviewed, how things are reviewed by general journals, by the scientific journals in social and personality psychology and psychology in general, how they get reviewed, what's the history of that process, why do we have what we have now, what is that like, what is writing manuscripts like, and what are the experiences of editors and reviewers, and whether the experience that we now all live under, whether that's really where we ought to be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. We haven't really talked about those, and that's in some sense what we're doing here. We're going to talk about those different, what we have, what we could have, what other fields have, and what some aspects of psychology already have, and whether we really ought to consider some other options. That's really what this is going to be about. The first person who's going to speak, I also ought to say that that Brian Nosek cannot make it, so he won't be talking because he has a very bad flu and couldn't get out of Charlottesville, or his doctor said, you're not getting out of Charlottesville. And Dwayne Wegner of Purdue has agreed to substitute and do something a bit different, but also within the same vein that I mentioned before about editorial practices and review and how to, what sort of tradition do we want? Do we want to start a new tradition? Is there a need for one, et cetera? And I want to thank him right up front for being willing to substitute at such a short notice. But our first speaker is Marilyn Brewer of Ohio State University, and her talk has the following title: JPSP versus Psychological Science, Alternative Models of Review and Selection and What They Imply for Social Psychology as a Science. Marilyn Brewer.